All right. Well, let's start with your why for competing in HYROX and everything else you do. What's the why behind it?
Cool. I think for me, it was a case of trying something new. I think I'd be caught up in different sports in the past, and then this one came about, and it kind of combined the best of both worlds. You've got heavy cardio that you could train, but then also heavy weights that you can also train, and it was something new, something different. And I think when I first got into it, that's when it was kind of on the uprise. So people started learning more about the sport, and because it's so new, so fresh, there's no like right way to train at the moment. So I think that's kind of the discovery with it all. I just want to see where it can kind of go.
So is it part of it like the excitement of learning how to train for it rather than this being this obvious set training plan? You like the
Yeah,
working it all out for yourself, yeah.
yeah, that's it. I mean, at the moment, I'm coach, so I like following a set routine within the coaching. But it's still kind of figuring out who's best in the sport. I'm quite a small athlete, so the whole thing for me has always been is a shorter guy better than a taller guy in certain sports? I think for this sport, no one really knows it yet. So
Mhm.
you can always say the taller athlete's always going to be better, but I'm here to try and prove that the shorter guys can also do pretty well in it.
Yeah, nice. All right, so let's there's tons I want to cover, and I was when I was researching for this, I was like, oh wow, he's done an awful lot of things. But let's just start with your sporting background. Like, what were you doing when you were younger?
Hey, so when I was really, really young, I was a gymnast. So I started in gymnastics, and then, like the majority of British guys, I was playing football as well. So I started from a really young age. I was a gymnast from around 4 or 5 years old all the way through till I was 15. Um, at 15, I kind of stopped just because I lost a bunch of motivation. When I was 10, I got told that I'd never make the Olympics in gymnastics. Um, from there, I kind of spiraled and got into still played football all the way through till I was about 20. But football was never going to be something that was huge for me just because, again, that was just something with height that I would always kind of get battered down for. I got to uni, started playing lacrosse, and carried on playing football through uni. Dropped out of university when I was 18, lasted 3 months, kind of got into a little bit of a rut, and then a advert popped on my phone to do white collar boxing. So I thought I'd just go for that, give it a go. I'm not doing anything at the moment. So I was a boxer from 18 through till 22. So stopped that last year, 23. So stopped that last year for HYROX, and now I'm here.
Okay, so running hasn't especially been a major part of your
No,
background,
no, never really run. Never really run.
right? And you mentioned your height a couple of times. How tall are you?
I'm 5'4". I'm five
Okay,
four.
all right, all
That's
right,
why
all
I
right.
told the story. 5'4", 5'3", in the middle of that.
And maybe an irrelevant question: why did you only last 3 months at university?
It was like anxiety, depression, everything like that. It just kind of all spiraled into one. University just wasn't for me. It can be for
Okay.
so many people. It just wasn't, never clicked with me. I'm not a big drinker. I don't really go out too much, and that was kind of like thrown in the deep end. I turned 18 in June, so turned 18 September. You're in university, and it's just thrown in the deep end. So
Right. Yeah,
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 no.
yeah. All right. Let's. So I mentioned there's a lot I want to talk about. Like you've done a lot of challenges, a lot of impressive things. Let's start with Snowden. So
Okay.
you're the Snowden 24 free man race champion for 3 years running. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tell us what that is. What that involves.
So this is like my running background now. So when I started boxing, COVID happened. Um, After COVID coming out the back end, one of my old high school friends put his Instagram story and just said, "I'm doing an ultra marathon. Does anyone fancy it?" During COVID, it was the whole 5K for time thing that was going on during COVID. And I went out to go do 5K. I ended up lasting 1 kilometer, if that. And I looked at my watch thinking it was 5K, and turns out it didn't even ping up saying 1K. So I'd done what I thought was best, went home, got a pedal bike, and then went round on a bike and said I'd done 5K instead. Um, so that was the start of my running journey back in COVID. I then started doing 5K a day through November. That kind of built up to a point, and then Ted, my friend, who I've done all the summit mentality stuff with, he pinged on his story saying, "Does anyone fancy doing this ultra marathon?" And I didn't know what it was. I just said yes, and that was it. That's what started that whole ultra marathon journey. So the Snowden 24 is as many times that you can go up and down Mount Snowden in a 24-hour period. I done it in a team of three, so it's a relay. So with three of us, one would then go, the next person back to the first, and you'd cycle through that for 24 hours, seeing what you could get. The first year I done it, we got nine as a team. That was like a whole game changer for me. I never knew what. I mean, we live in Essex. It's not hilly at all around here. So training for a mountain ultra is just impossible. So year two, we went again. We got less. We got eight as a team, and then the year just gone. The whole thing is if you hit 10 summits, it's the Everest Award. So you've just done Mount Everest in elevation. The third year, we swapped out one of our teammates, Joe, for my brother, Finley, my younger brother. And we were like, right, this year we've got to get 10. And we got 10, and it was the toughest competition that we've had so far, like the biggest kind of, it was all a chase for first. And my brother done the final lap to go get 10, and he came down. I just remember that was the best feeling I've had doing any kind of running event. Just seeing him come
Nice.
across the line, like ultra marathons do. You're in so much pain. He's bawling his eyes out. I'm like, yeah, he's felt the pain. He's felt the pain.
It was painful? Like, was that the toughest thing you'd done at that time?
At that time, yeah, the first time doing it, that was the toughest thing I've ever done. It's one of those things where you don't know when to push, how hard you can push, and then the minute it's dark outside, or there's like an element with the weather that goes wrong. The first year we done it, it was 30 degrees. It was the hottest day that Snowden's ever seen. The next year it was 90% humidity and chucking it down. And then last year it was just chucking it down non-stop. So there were three different kind of races, and each time you go, you think you've done it enough so that you know what you're in for. And every time it hits me, every time.
What was like the time frame from like that first 5K where you lasted a kilometer to doing something like this? What was the time frame there?
So my first 5K, what was COVID? 2020, and then we
Hmm.
done 2022. So it's about a year and a half that we were training for it. I mean, I went from the minute like the world opened up again, it was back to boxing training. I'd make sure I do 5K to boxing, do my session, and then come back. That's always what I used to do. So I built up the running that way, but I never knew what running training was. I didn't know what intervals were. I just thought 5K, go run it. That's it. The distance is there. I'll just get better if I just keep running 5Ks. I never
You,
trained as a runner until now.
nice. So you progressed pretty well though as a runner during that time, just doing that basically.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just putting yourself in those. Like, I'm not saying everyone needs to go do an ultra marathon to get better at running, but I think for me, it was just chucking myself in the deep end and being like, right, let's see how we get on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Funny enough, I thought when you said that, you were just like, "Yeah, I'll do it." It's a, it's one trait I've noticed of a lot of people that I talk to on this podcast. Like, because even at the top of the elite sport, that everyone's very different in terms of their personalities and things like that, and their characteristics and like their body shape and everything. But one thing that I think a lot of them have got in common is like they seem to just say yes to things like that, like in the off season, yeah, I'll just go and do an ultra marathon, like things like that they're completely unprepared for, is one thing I've noticed time and time again on this
Yeah.
podcast anyway.
I
So
think it's
yeah.
just the sense of challenge. I think that's what we kind of thrive for is if you put something hard in front of us and someone can doubt it, you're there just saying, may as well give it my best shot and see how we get on. Because
Mm,
then if you do succeed, it's good. You've learned that you can push to this next level. If you don't, then you kind of evaluate why you didn't. So
mhm.
then the next time anything like that comes up, then you feel even more prepared for it.
Yeah, yeah. I often ask on here like what you think about where your mind goes during a high rocks when things get very tough. Um, but I appreciate that in something like the Snowden challenge, like it's a different level, it's a different type of fatigue, it's a different type of struggle in a way. Like you're not necessarily at whatever 200 beats per minute with your heart rate. Like does where did your mind go during something like that?
I think my mind always stems back to a situation like that I've been in prior, knowing that I've been on the same mountain before. Every time I go, you're in the same amount of pain. It's I push through then. Can I push
Mhm.
through now? And if I don't push through now, how am I going to feel if I do quit? If I do stop? If I do slow down? It's that thing of what's good about the Snowden race and like HYROX relays stuff like that, all your doubles, you're in a team. There's someone else that is reliant on you as well. I think
Hmm.
that's what stems for me when I do that side of sport is if I stop now, how am I going to feel? But more importantly, how are they going to feel as well if I do slow down, if I do stop?
Hmm. Okay. All right. Um, so another thing you've done is the Burpee Mile world record. Is that right?
Yeah, 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 that's the one.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, tell us about that. Presumably, what did you notice you were good at burpee broad jumps and went for the world record?
Yeah, I think that was just a thing from HYROX. That was just, I used to train burpees through boxing. We used to do burpees all the time. And it was just one of those things that I never added in, like essentially a long jump to a burpee until HYROX started coming about. And I think that the height definitely plays a good positive for it. I done the first HYROX, and I think we came in my doubles, we came first on the burpees. We done the next HYROX, came first on the burpees, the next HYROX, and I could seem to maintain speed over a little bit longer than my doubles partner or I guess the field that I'm competing against. So I started realizing I was all right at burpees, and I just kept on kind of doing them for a little bit of fun. And then over, I think it was Christmas last year, is I just went on my phone. I was like, I wonder what the world record for burpee broad jumps is, and I literally Googled world record for burpee broad jumps, and the mile pinged up on my phone. And on Guinness World Record, it cost £5 to enter. I was like, wow, what have I got to lose? May as well just enter it. Why not? And then completely forgot about it until about August this year, and I had to do it in September. And it was the biggest faff trying to get everything sorted to film and record and everything for a Guinness World Record. I never thought it would be that complex, to the point where I'm quite last minute with a lot of things I do. So I was literally sat on this table on my laptop trying to plan if I've got people to film, people to watch me, so that 9 a.m. the next morning it would just be foolproof and I could just go crack on and do it. The training for it was brutal. It was brutal because it was just one of those things that I forgot about. And burpeeing for 80 meters compared to a mile is there's a big difference, and I quickly realised that. Very quickly realised that. But I think it was one of those things. It just turned out to be the hottest day in September when I went and
Oh.
done it. So it was pretty brutal being on a rubber track and everything. So there was a lot of trial and error that went into that during training. But I think it was just another case of looking something up and going, yeah, what could go wrong? Let's give it a go.
So you did it around an athletics track, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And the complexity was because you had to film it and make sure it was permanently filmed for the Guinness record. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I didn't realize that not a lot of cameras can film up to an hour. I didn't know that
Right.
because in my head, the record before was an hour 30. So in my head, it was okay, I need an hour and 30 to be filmed. I need cameras to last that long. So the day before, I was out in Argos buying portable chargers so that these cameras wouldn't die. I'd make sure that I had all the cameras, the SD cards, everything. Um, and then obviously being on a rubber track, it was remembering that my knees would not be happy, my hands might not be happy. So there
Yeah.
was a lot of thought that went into it, which is very last minute in the thought.
um, so you did a 60 minutes 44 for a mile of burpee broad jumps, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which maybe you know this. What's the like per 80 meters? Because a lot of people listening to this will know how quickly they can do burpee broad jumps in 80 meters.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I
Well,
know it's 15
I
minutes
think it's
per
around
cycle.
I think it's around 3 minutes for 80 meters of broad jump. If I've worked that out right, which is impressive, like for
Oh,
an hour. So yeah, amazing, amazing.
thank you. Yeah, the way we split it up was I had because obviously I had like a little bit of a crowd with me of just friends, and my mum came along, and I just kind of said to one of my mates, I said, "You're gonna run 20 meters, and every minute on the minute, I'm just gonna go burpee to you," and that was it. That's how we done it. And then he told me afterwards he was running further than 20 meters. So that kind of got me through it. It was the whole thing of just breaking it down like that as I was going around the track. So the
Nice.
strategy again was last minute.
Yeah. um, I also looked and I noticed you had the fastest burpees in Nice at the World Championships as well. And you mentioned your height, and so like yeah, I guess being shorter can help burpees. But is there anything else? Like, do you train them a lot? Do you feel like the gymnastics from your childhood helps that as well?
Yeah, I think the burpees definitely help from gymnastics. If I have to pinpoint a type of sport or a movement that burpees are similar to, it's gymnastics. You're constantly pressing off the floor. Everything is that pressing motion. Being short obviously helps, but then obviously you got to account for the jump side of things. And as an ex-gymnast, the jumping was key in what we were doing. If we were going for like a backflip, let's say a back tuck, you would hit the floor as powerful as you can, try and get as high as you can. So the leg power would always come from gymnastics. Coming off and off the up and off the floor would also stem from gymnastics. So that's how I could see that sport ties into HYROX pretty well in a lot of the
Yeah.
movements that we do.
Mhm. Do you when you do when you train for burpees or train for high rocks, are you just like what form of burpees do you feel like is most beneficial? Like, are you just doing burpees to plate, burpee box jump overs, burpee broad jumps? Like, is there any that you feel benefit you most?
I vary them up all the time. Vary them up all the time. Like yesterday, I done burpee broad jumps within the training session. I try and avoid just normal burpees, just because they don't. Obviously, it's on and off the floor. It's fine, but I want to mimic the at least the effort to go forwards,
Hmm.
because a burpee technique and broad jump technique, they're so different. Like in my broad jumps, I'm stepping up. In my normal burpees, I'm jumping up, but I'll
Hmm.
keep my chest low no matter what. So I think it's trying to see how you do the technique within race and trying to apply that to any training that you do. So a lot of it is burpee box jumps. I do a lot of those, and burpee to plate. I do a lot of burpees to plate. If I do a regular burpee, it would be to a plate. So I'm always getting the forward motion with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how I tend to train them.
Okay. All right. And you recently were part of the men's relay team that broke the world record, which
Yeah.
is amazing. Like I obviously track the world records, and that was one I always felt like was going to be a particularly tough record to break. So it was amazing from all four of you. Did you do the relay? Did you do the burpees in that relay?
I did do the burpees. I done the burpees and the wall balls in the relay.
Okay, okay. What time did you get in the burpees in that
I
race? Do you know?
got a minute 34 seconds.
Wow. All right. Nice, nice. How was the race? How was the experience? Really good.
That was one of the hardest races I've ever been a part of, ever. That was a real tough race, a real tough race, and it was so good. I was saying to all the guys afterwards, and we all agreed there was three teams that were in the running to just come first. The world record was irrelevant during the race. It was just a case of there were three really, really dominant teams within that relay. And it was, we would be first for a little bit, someone else be first, the next team would be first. And you could obviously track it quite well because you need to know where your team is. It was the most intense, like 50 minutes of my life, just standing there watching everyone running. That was the first time I felt like HYROX was a race
Yeah,
against people, not the clock.
yeah.
Like it was so good. It was so good.
Nice, nice. Did you have to pace the run before the burpees at all, or was it literally full send from the start?
So when I got to the burpees, sorry, it was oh, we were in third place out of the three. So there was no pacing. It was literally just full gas for this 1K and just hope for the best on the burpees and just see if I could pull out of the bag. Um, and then the same with the wall balls as well. We were in third for the majority of that race, so it was just us chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing, which I quite liked. I quite like that side of things.
Yeah,
Again, because I've never been in a high rocks race knowing what position I'm in, so the whole chase of it all just made it so much better, so much
yeah.
better.
Nice, nice, amazing. Um, next, the next thing, Hyrox 24. So yeah, tell us about that.
So in April this year, my friend Callum Bratt and we put the challenge to do 12 high rocks in 24 hours. So I came up with the idea after I done my first high rocks back in April last year, and after that I went off, done the Snowden race again in July. came back and I was a little bit like, oh, what if I could do an ultra marathon for HYROX? Didn't know what that looked like at first. So got in contact with HYROX, said, I've got this idea. I want to try and do 24 hours worth of HYROX and see how many I can do. Because I had only done a doubles at that point. I was like, I'm going to do it paired. Doing that solo just sounds like hell. So I'm just going to do it paired. Um, I didn't have a partner to do it with at first or anything. HYROX said we could do it, but we won't be able to do it at an event. I was kind of gutted. I kind of wanted to do it at an event because I know Dean had done one at the event. And I asked a little bit before, so they told me that he was doing it and like how it would work. And I was like, I kind of just want to do 24 hours worth instead of doing like some on day one, some on day two. I want to see how long I can kind of crack on for. So then they said, yeah, we'll jump in. If you do it at an affiliate gym, it's all good. So that's kind of what we looked at doing. So we done it at my gym, unique gym based in Saffron Walden. We done it there, but I still didn't have a partner. So I had this whole idea, the whole like layout, the date set, and everything with no partner. Callum, I've known since I was 11 years old, and he before this he never done a HYROX. So I kind of said to him, look, I've done this. I've done another one in November. Come watch it, see what you think of it, and if you fancy it, do 12 with me. And he watched me in November, and he just went, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it." So he done one HYROX prior to that solo, and then he just said, "Right, let's train for it." And training for 12 is completely different to training for one. So it was like a whole nother ball game that we had to train for. And then obviously the day rolled around, but the build up to it, we were like, how are we going to train for it? We know that no one's done it before. How are we going to know that we can actually crack on for 24 hours doing not just running this time, it's all the strength movements as well. So in training, we done two HYROXes back to back, which went absolutely fine. We then done four. By the fourth, Callum was in so much pain that he had to kind of drop back pace entirely. So we didn't hit the goal that we wanted to. We then went for 8 HYROXes, probably about 2 months out. That was meant to be around, I think, 16 hours on the pace that we wanted to do. Callum got 4 in again and just had to stop. He had so much pain. I think it was in his hip, and he had to call it a day on the fourth. I carried on to do another 2 because I wanted to get to 6, and by the 6th, I was just in absolute pieces. Having that 2 months out, we then didn't know how we would kind of feel going into doing 12. So once we've kind of evaluated what we wanted to do, we came up with a strategy that we were going to go by. We would say every 2 hours, we would go do a HYROX. So we would do a HYROX in an hour and a half, have a 30-minute rest, and then we would go again. And we would kind of do that for 24 hours. And it worked in our favor. The best thing that we had planned for that day, though, was we had like a charity day at my gym where members from my gym would go into teams of 4 and they would start a HYROX at the exact same time as me and Callum, and they'd join us through the whole thing. And then the next 2 hours, another team would join, and another team, and another team. So having that meant we had the accountability to keep going. So obviously there was pain throughout the 24 hours. There were points where we did want to stop, but it was knowing that there was another 4 people waiting for us at the start line just kept us going.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then 10 a.m. hit the following day, and then that was it. We'd done it. So felt good. It felt good.
Nice. Amazing. What was there a particularly tough part? Was there a particularly tough station that you were like, oh no, this station again?
The lunges.
Yeah.
The lunges were killer. I think it was we were on again number 4 hit, and instead of Callum being in pain on number 4, I was in loads of pain. Loads. We've got like a little documentary video out about the 24 hours, and on run number 4, I started getting pain in my right side. Um, Turns out it was trapped wind. So I was laying on the floor after run 6, just pressing into my stomach. Obviously, let loose, and then from there, I had like the second wind and carried on going. Callum then over time started to decline and decline and decline. And I think for us, it was just every time we would hit station number 7, the lunges, we'd be like, right, one more run, the wall balls, and it's done. But over time, those lunges just seemed to go on and on and on. It was the lunges that killed us both.
How was the recovery afterwards? Did it take a while?
Yeah, yeah. It was one of those things where I think we were on such a high
Mm.
that we were both like, "How do you feel?" "Yeah, I feel absolutely fine." "Yeah, how do you feel?" "Yeah, absolutely fine." First session back, heart rate spiked. We're like, "No, we're not. We are not fine. We take that all back." And I mean, from April to Worlds, it was like I had an 8 or 9 week training block until I went out to Nice to do Worlds.
Mhm.
So for me, it wasn't a case of right, I've done this challenge, I'm just gonna chill now. It was a case of I've done this challenge, I've got to get back to training. How quickly can I recover to go again? And I think that shot me in the foot massively, thinking like that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, is it you said how it is like very different to just doing one HYROX? Do you feel like it stood you in good stead though for like let's say for Nice? I appreciate that it's a relatively short time frame that you had, but was it a good base to work off of or just
I
not?
think so. I think because I obviously where it was all kind of slow aerobic work, it definitely helped. And it's weird to think back of our training would just consist of like a half marathon each day. So knowing that that kind of helped me to then turn it from a block of pure aerobic endurance work straight into right now we're gonna do loads of intervals and it's gonna hurt a lot more. Knowing
Mm.
that I had that base first, I think now looking at those 8 weeks building to Nice, it really did help. But again, I'm not telling everyone to go out there and start doing like ultra marathon training before their high rocks. It's completely unnecessary. But I think for me, it did help to a point, but the
Yeah.
recovery was really hard from it. Really hard.
What's the hardest out of all the sort of the challenges that we've talked about there? What was the toughest you've done?
Oh, it's hard to. It's really hard to say. I think it's really hard to say. I think for me, the reason why I do the challenges is because they're hard. They've all got different aspects of it being hard. Like a 24-hour race, it's obviously the challenge itself is really difficult, but you could be 17 hours in and you could be in excruciating pain or you could be on top of the world. But then
Mhm.
the 18th hour could be the complete opposite. So the challenge for those side of things, as much as yes, it's physical, they're a lot more mental. They're a lot more mentally challenging. Whereas you've got like the Burpee Mile, for instance, where it was an hour long. Again, it could be 30 minutes in, I could be in the most pain. 31 minutes in, I could actually be on a brand new level. So it kind of coincides with everything. And I think I do each different challenge for different reasons. Some are to see how far I can push. Some are to see how far I can physically push, not mentally push. So I think it's hard to pinpoint exactly one challenge that was harder than the rest.
Yeah. Let's talk about actual high rocks as well.
Yeah.
So you've you do singles and doubles as well. Yeah. What's so is it 103 your
Yeah.
pro
103,
PB?
103.31 for pros.
Okay, and then 58 for the open.
Yeah.
Is that has that got your priority now, or are you
The
what are you focused on?
solos, yeah, the solos is taking priority for this season. I got into it through doubles. That's how I kind of got into it. And I was saying to someone the other day, without the double side of HYROX, I think I would enjoy the sport as a whole less. I think if I just kept on doing the solos, without doing any relay or doubles, I'd enjoy it a lot more. I'd enjoy it a lot less. Sorry,
Hmm.
it's very solitary when you're just training by yourself all the time and you're racing by yourself. To when you go do it in a pair, you can then see what station you can push harder on. You can then see what run you can push harder on, and you can work with someone. I think
Hmm.
it's so much nicer being able to do both worlds. You can see the solo side of it and the double side of it, and they just go so nicely that it
Hmm.
keeps the enjoyment there for me.
Yeah, you've pretty much nailed the burpees. But so, what is it? What is it that you're working on? You feel you need to work on to improve from where you're at?
Farmers carry.
Okay.
Farmers carry, which is always everyone always thinks it's weird when I say that. For me, in the Open, the one just gone in Manchester that I done, that was the first time I've ever done unbroken farmers carries. And even then, it wasn't like the fastest that I've ever been able to do. It's just something for me that's really difficult. But then if we take it into the pros, where they're 32 kilo kettlebells, I'm carrying myself. So I'm literally carrying myself again for
Yeah.
another 100 meters, 200 meters, I think it is. So trying to teach myself that and ingrain that into my training has been like priority for me because I do lose a fair bit of time compared to the field on farmers. And then
Lunges.
the lunges as well, they kill me.
um, so what does your training look like if we talk about a typical training week? How might that be structured, like high level? How much running are you doing, things like that?
So running at the moment, I'm doing around 50 to 60K of running a week. I would always do 3 running sessions at least, and then I would add in like a HYROX session, a HYROX specific running session, where it would be like it could be running 400 to 1.6K of running, with the stations inside or around that run. The 3 runs I tend to do, and I'll always do a zone 2 run still, a nice chilled run where I can just go out and just like one foot in front of the other, crack on intervals and kind of like a tempo run as well. Just trying
Mhm.
to pick up a little bit of mileage while I do it. And then the high specific running would just be station into like the compromise run, if you like. But that could amount again to 8K, or it could literally go to like 2K. As long as there's some kind of leg turnover within it, that's what I'm training.
Okay. And uh, do you know what sort of like pace you can run? 5K, 10K, half marathon at?
Because I'm still quite new to running and learning about all pacing and when to push, when not to push. My 5K PB is 18:01. And I got that by being ridiculously stupid on a start line, just trying to keep up with the fastest person. But again, pacing for me, I just go as hot as I can out the gate and just hope to hang on. So I'm still learning that side of running. I'm still learning all of that. But I recently done a half marathon. When was that? October, start of October, I think. And that I done an hour 25 something. And again, that was then saying to a friend, "What are you aiming for?" He said an hour 25. I said, "Right, I'm just going to try and stick with you." He said, I asked him what pace it was. He told me, and I was like, I think I could do that. I can normally do that in HYROX. I'll just stick it out, see how we get on. We got that 8K and 21, are completely different. But yeah, just try to stick with him doing that. So I'm still learning about the running game and how it all kind of works and pacing, when to push, when to hold back. Like if there's a
Yeah.
hill, sprint it, probably not. So I'm still learning all of that side of things.
Okay. And how about like recovery? Do you use anything in particular from that, either from HYROX, from your HYROX training, from like your more ultra stuff? Have you found anything to be particularly beneficial?
The bike. The
Yeah.
bike for me. I think the minute I kind of stop, if I have a rest day where it's complete rest, lay in bed, do nothing, the next day is even harder than it is just to train a normal day. I think if I just keep my legs moving, I walk, I'll just do, I never would have like an active run. For me, it's just impact doesn't work best. So I
Mhm.
just take like anything non-impact. So I'd go for a walk, I'd cycle for a little bit. As long as my legs are moving, then I'm all good. That would be my like biggest recovery. I take supplements and stuff like that to help it as well. And then an ice bath every now and then when I can get them set up. But that seems to be a bit of a chore at the moment. But now it's getting colder outside, setting it up and keeping it cold would be a lot easier.
Very true, very true. And I sort of mentioned like mindset earlier in like mindset doing something like Snowden, but how about during HYROX? Is there something that you lean on there, or is it just a similar thought process?
Yeah, it's always just going back to I've been in this pain before. How far am I going to push? How far can I push when I'm in this state? And knowing that I'm going to come out the other side either really happy or really, really unhappy with my performance. And that's what it always goes to. And there's always everyone has like a mental dip within a race. If you don't, probably not human. I want to meet this person that doesn't. You always have some kind of mental dip. It could be you could hit the sled and just think for a split seconds, this isn't moving. I think like the majority of us have always been there where you'd hit the sled pull, go to do it, and you're like, not moving. It's that fight or flight instinct. It's the 1 second decision of saying you can either stop right now and be completely unhappy with that performance, or you can keep going and prove to yourself that actually you can get it moving. You can push that 1 step further. And that's what I always go back to is just remembering, been here before. I know what it feels like to stop. now let's push through because I know that feeling of success at the end of it.
Hmm. Nice, nice. What's been your best sporting experience? We've talked about a lot. Does one stand out as being your favourite?
Or as weird as it sounds, my I think the one that's been ingrained in me the most is when I was boxing. I had my national final, and I came second in the national final. And I think that stands out for me the most because it was a feeling that I never wanted to have again. In the ring, I can remember each round. There was only 3 rounds. I can remember each one. And in the second round, I went in there knowing I've lost that fight. And I said to myself I'd lost that fight. And I was only in there to be a body. I wasn't in there to compete at that point. And we were only 1 round deep. And that was it. And I quit before the bell had even fit, like before the fight had even finished. By the time round two finished, I went into round three thinking I could win this. Why did I quit that second round? But now, as I'd lost 2 rounds, there was no winning. There was no hope that I would win. So for me, it was knowing that I have quit something, and that's been ingrained in me for so long, knowing that I've been in that place. Why did I even put myself there? To now knowing the feeling that I had from that, putting it into everything that I do in day to day life, in every race, having that ingrained in me has really lifted me through everything that I've done. I think that
Hmm.
for me stands out as one of the, not necessarily the worst or the greatest, but something that has always been there and I always come back to know the feeling of.
Like beneficial learning experience that
Yeah,
stuck with you for ages.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've had like the relay, for instance. I've had like on top of the world feelings, but the one that I'll always learn from and it will always stick out for me is that one boxing match.
Yeah, nice. What was why did you have that mentality in that second round? Just because of the how good the competitor was?
Yeah, I think it was when you're boxing and it's 1-on-1 in the ring, it's you against him, and that's all it is. There's no one in there to help you. There's your coach can shout so much at you, but if you quit, if you feel like you're the worst fighter in that ring, then so much can run through your head. And the minute you get hit once,
Yeah.
everything runs through your head. And I think at that moment in time, it was just a case of me making up excuses in my own mind, thinking, "Oh, you're not good enough. Oh, this." To the point where it's just now, yeah, ingrained in me. And my mindset's changed just from that one fight alone, that one experience. My whole mindset shifted. So you can learn a lot from getting punched in the face.
Yeah. How about your toughest sporting experience?
Again, you could probably link it back to that, but I think another one that goes back. So when I was at school, and it was football, basketball. The school that I went to was really big in basketball. It was one of the schools where if you wasn't playing basketball, you wouldn't make any other teams. Being 5'4", and at the time probably like 4'5", playing basketball is not the most ideal build. I remember being on the football pitch playing football, and I was like the substitute while the game was going on. And after the game, I never got game time. Two of the boys came up to me and they said, "You didn't play because the teacher said you were too short to go on the pitch." That for me was that one sporting experience that was again one of those times. Whereas people have said it. Now I want to prove those guys wrong. So I
Mhm.
think that's another one for me. That was my worst sporting experience where it was a case of people didn't believe in me because of a physical aspect. I'm now going to go and make it my mission to prove them wrong, to show that no matter where you are, where you've been, what you look like, that you can push forward and you can become the top of whatever you put your mind to.
Mm. Good, good. Um, what's the best piece of advice someone's given you or you've discovered while training for HYROX?
Um, the one thing that someone told me when I done my first high rock session with my boss, and I was we done 500-meter run into one sled pull to one sled push, and I think you put on 50 kilos on the sled pull, and I couldn't shift it, couldn't move it, and my boss turned to me then and he said, "Consistency's key," and that was it, all he said, and then from then on it clicked. I was like, "Yeah, you're not wrong." 50 kilos went back on the sled the next day, done it again and again and again to the point where now obviously in the pros you're pulling 150. So
Yeah.
I'll always go back to that first thing of, again, everyone's human. No one's ever going to be able to do something straight away. Consistency is key. And I think that's what I've learned through this sport and through like sports in general is like you can start at 1K before an ultra marathon. You start at like pulling like just the sled before you start pulling 150 kilos. I think
Yeah.
that's just what I've learned through sport and yeah, the high rolls especially.
Yeah, yeah, nice, and almost like you said earlier, like running that 5K a day to the boxing, that has gradually built up your running capability as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's just all consistency.
And then last question: if you could plant one idea or piece of advice in the mind of everyone listening, and it can be anything, what would it be?
If someone says that you can't, prove to them that you can. I think that's just something I've always lived by. Is don't let anyone tell you can't do something. If you believe in yourself that you can.
Nice, nice, love it. What are your HYROX plans going forward?
So I've got 3 races in London. I'm doing doubles with friends. I'm doing doubles with my dad again, and then I'm doing the team relay again, where I think now we're expected to put down a really good time. So there's a bit more added pressure on that one. Then I'm out in Marseille to do my first pro solos of the season, and then I got more races next year that are all in the books, and then Chicago that I qualified for in Manchester, which is exciting.
Okay, amazing. And you think the relay world record could go again in London? Do you think?
We'll give it a good crack. I think if there's fast teams with us, we will definitely give it a good crack. But chasing teams compared to chasing the clock is so different.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll definitely give it a good crack.
Okay, awesome. Uh, Tell us if people want to find you, follow you, find out more about you, where do they go?
So yeah, best thing for me is probably Instagram. I'm just Travis Owls. Travis Travis and Owls is Owles. So Owls, but with an E in the middle. Yeah, Instagram probably best way to find me.
And you've got a run club as well in Essex, yeah?
If you're ever in Chelmsford, Summit Mentality Run Club, come drop in, come drop in. 5K or 3K every Thursday.
All right, love it. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.